Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today, Substantiating Claims for Suncare and SPF Products. Before I launch too much into what today's webinar is going to be, I'm just going to hand over to our founder and our managing director, Susan Ayton, who's going to do a short introduction. Susan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I hope you can hear me, and I assume if you can, that everybody else can too.
Yeah.
So we're all working from our sort of lockdown position. We're all working from home. We have a full service that we're offering globally in any territory that we can get products into. And gradually borders are opening up again. Certain countries we've not been able to send samples to, and then we've been able to choose equivalents and continue our service that way. But I just wanted to do a little introduction about Suncare, because actually it's been a major part in the early success of our business. And that's because we developed a mechanism whereby we could track people in terms of when they were leaving for their holiday, when they were coming back from their day, the country of the holiday that they were going on, and also the temperature of that country at the time they were on holiday. And this was quite an invention at the time in terms of the mechanics of running a consumer study. And so we gained the interest of most of the British High Street, actually, and we ran our consumer studies for Marks and Spencer.
Oh, sorry, there is a slight technical fault. I think we've lost Sue. I can't hear her now. Sorry, I do apologise for that. I'll see if she can come back in. But if not, I will continue anyway. So one thing I forgot to say quickly is that this webinar is being recorded. So we can share this with you at the end of it. Everyone who's registered for the event will get a recording of this webinar with the link. There's also going to be a question and answer towards the end. So if you've got any questions as this goes on, please feel free to make a note of any questions that you have. And I'll open up to a Q&A towards the end of the presentation and answer any questions that I can. So unfortunately we lost Sue there, but as she was mentioning, we obviously, from even being just when we were just in the UK and just in the EU, right to going international as we are global consumer studies, we've always been able to test Suncare, because we can always track where our participants are going in the world and make sure they're in the right environment that's appropriate for the SPF product that they are testing. So we're very much more interested when we're looking at consumer research of the other attributes to the product rather than just the sun protection factor, which, as you know, if you're in Suncare or if you're launching into Suncare, it's really important to think about all the claims you can make about the product and not just the fact that it's protective, because every Suncare product is protective. So it's making sure that your product can stand out in this really crowded market. But I'm going to talk a little bit about both regulations. I'll talk about all the regulations for SPF testing, but also talk about some other kinds of testing as well. So just to give you the kind of agenda for today. So I'm going to be looking at advertising standards and organisations. I'll be touching on that globally, because I'm aware that people will have come from sort of global backgrounds to today's webinar. So just kind of give you a sort of an overview of the global advertising standards there. And then we'll look at a sort of summary of consumer research, which is what obviously we conduct at Global Research, and the kinds of claims that you can make through the research that we do. We'll also look at the legal framework for testing Suncare and the global regulations. Where does it sit in the categories? Again, we'll look quite globally, so I'll give some examples to give you some ideas about all the regulations there. Mainly we're going to be looking at marketing claims for Suncare and SPF products, because again, we're looking at advertising law, looking at claim substantiation. So not just about the SPF, it's about what those marketing claims are and how you can substantiate them. So it's obviously about choosing appropriate study design and methodology, and I'll show you some case studies as well to put that into practice. So to give you some background on myself, so I'm the regulatory specialist for ACE and Global Research. So this means that my job is to really look at the regulations surrounding consumer research, surrounding advertising standards, and generally surrounding the industries that we test in, so things like cosmetics and toiletries. We do test in any kind of industry, but obviously today we're looking at Suncare and SPF products. So it's much more relevant about the kind of regulations we're looking at to do with cosmetics and pharmaceutical products as well. But my background at the company is very much from a study manager point of view. So I kind of like sort of thinking like an account manager sort of thing, where basically I get to know a client's needs inside and out and create a really bespoke service for consumer research. And then I've progressed that now to sort of train other staff on how to do that. I kind of consult with new clients that we have and ensure that I'm assigning the correct study manager so that you're being completely handled with all of your requirements that you have for your own research. Can also provide a gap analysis. So if you have any products that you have on the market or that you're looking to launch onto the market, I can advise the correct tests that you'll need to be able to test that product, to be able to substantiate those claims, sorry. So I'm kind of your first point of contact, if you think of it that way, when you're working with ACE and Global Research. So always feel free to contact me and I can help you with anything. So again, if you've got any questions from today and you don't have time to answer the question and answer, you can feel free to email me at any point as well. So I just want to start off by doing an overview of the sun care market currently. So obviously sun care is huge. I think that's no surprise to anybody. I think especially at this moment, and I've kind of taken a few clips from articles there for you. Basically, at the moment, the whole industry for cosmetics is very much changing in the fact that people are very cautious. The consumers are very cautious about the health of their skin, being protected and thinking about the skin itself, looking after the skin rather than, kind of just cosmetics covering it up. We want to make sure we've got really healthy skin, and sun protection is such a huge factor of that. We've already sort of seen that there's different attributes that are really important in consumer demand to do with things like anti-aging and anti-pollution. A lot of the claims that we're substantiating for SPF products are really focused on these attributes. So again, it's really important to know about the consumer research side of it, because that's how you're going to be substantiating those claims. There's also been a boom in natural and organic products. And again, I think it's just this whole looking after your skin, making sure you're using good products on your skin, and that whole skin health, which is making the sun care market incredibly successful at the moment. So if you're not already in the sun care market, or if you already are, making sure your claims are substantiated and you've got some great advertising claims so you can stand out in this huge market that is ever growing. It's really, really important. I also want to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on sun care, because obviously, if you've been watching my webinars, we can't not talk about it at the moment. It's really, really important for any industry, and especially in anything to do with fast-moving consumer goods, which obviously cosmetics are. So the whole global cosmetic market has been declining, which is no surprise. There's a struggle to get certain raw ingredients. There's a struggle to get the right staff in place to manufacture the products, and it means there's a real shortage. And also, obviously, cosmetic stores have been shut down, so people can't go out and purchase products the way that they used to. On the plus side of that, UK online beauty stores, beauty sales are soaring. So this is just the UK I've taken out, but again, this is applicable worldwide. So over the last few weeks, they've seen a 53% soar, which is part of an incredible 111% boost since the beginning of COVID-19. So it's really, again, important to make sure that your claims are substantiated, because obviously you still want to be able to sell products online, but also after the COVID-19 crisis, you need to have your products ready for that launch. So you're not delaying any of that by not having this claim substantiation in place. It's really important at the moment as well. And again, if you've watched any of my other webinars, you'll know that I've been looking at regulations for advertising in specific countries, because online sales means you may be making sales in countries that you weren't before, and you're now finding you've got a huge surge in particular markets. That may mean that your claims are not compliant in those markets, because, for example, if you've got a UK product, you're testing an SPF product, for example, and your compliance is all about skin feeling protected in sort of lower temperatures and much sort of less strong UVA and B rays, but then your product is suddenly soaring in the UAE, you may find that your claims are not compliant in that market. So it's really, really important to be aware of these global regulations, and it's more important now than ever, basically, whilst we're looking at online sales. So I've talked a lot about advertising standards. Let's give you kind of the overall background for that. So the International Chamber of Commerce is where I always start off, because they have a self-regulatory system which countries can adopt. So we'll talk a lot about self-regulatory organizations. So a lot of countries worldwide have a self-regulatory organization, as well as advertising laws, to ensure that, basically, as the ICC say, all communications are legal, honest, decent and truthful. Basically means you can't mislead your consumer into purchasing your product. You need to make sure that you're being really responsible of your advertising. So the ICC is the kind of starting point in terms of the framework which the countries can adopt, and it's currently used in 42 countries worldwide, and ever growing as well. So that you might see that grow sort of over the next few weeks, over the next few months. It's always growing. But it's a really good starting point in terms of knowing that, like the overall, the overarching theme of what the advertising regulations will be in those worldwide countries. So yeah, I always say start off with the ICC and then kind of go more granular. So going more granular, we've got the International Council on Ad Self-Regulation, which is ICAS. So this was developed by the European Advertising Standards Alliance. So those of you that are EU based, you'll know that you've got the European Advertising Standards Alliance, which are, again, another overarching self-regulatory organization. And underneath that, certain countries have their own SROs. If they don't have their own SROs, they're applicable to the EASA. So they set up ICAS, which is basically a council that all these self-regulatory organizations can be a part of, and make sure that there's a homogeny between all of the code of conducts that they're putting out to their to people that are marketing in their countries. So it's not just Europe that's a part of that. You've got the US, Australia, places in Asia, places in South America. It's huge. So that's a really good, again, next kind of starting point. If you're not sure who the SRO is in the country that you're looking to advertise your product, go to the ICAS website, look on their members page, and it will give you a really clear breakdown of who is actually part of that council. And it means that any of the news that they're releasing as well is being taken, it's sort of happening in those countries that are all part of that council as well. So they've got really good news updates on there all the time about what they're kind of changing and how SROs should be looking at advertising and managing complaints and things like that. So that's kind of the overall picture for ICAS. Then we've got certain countries that have their own SROs, and obviously there are so many. So I've just pulled together a few examples of kind of common places that we might see advertising. We might do studies to get the claims substantiated. So we need to make sure we're following their code of conduct. So basically, the SROs that are specific for the country, their main job is to have a code of conduct that people have to follow if they're looking to advertise there. But also, they are the ones that deal with complaints for any advertising and investigate them. So a complaint may come from your consumers, and it may come from your competitors. Basically, anyone that thinks that your advertising is misleading or goes against any of their other codes of conduct, they will report it to their SRO, who will then come to you and ask for your evidence behind your claim. Or it could be, if it's offensive, they could just ask you straight up to take it down, depending on kind of the different sort of penalties there. There are different penalties in every country. Some people would just sort of say to stop advertising, stop using that advert in its current form, take the product off the market, things like that. But it can go to incredibly high fines. And as we see a lot in places like the US, it can go to lawsuits as well, where you could be sued for your misleading advertising. So it's really, really important to be aware of these codes of conduct, because it could be incredibly expensive kind of mistake to make if you have not followed their code of conduct. So most of those are normal SROs, but when I say normal, they are independent bodies that are doing the ad regulation. The one in the middle, the USA, the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, they aren't the SRO. The SRO in the USA are the Better Business Bureau national programs, but they don't really have any power. They kind of just deal with the complaints, whereas the FTC deal with the complaints and take legal action. They're actually a federal organization, which means they have the right to completely police advertising in the USA. and abroad. They also do things that are outside of the USA as well. So again, it's really, really important to know that you can actually be disobeying the law in the US. So you really don't want to upset the FTC's code of conduct, because you're going to end up with much harsher penalties than you may in some other countries. So I wanted to bring up those examples, but again, always look at the ICAS website or look at that country individually to be able to see what the SRO is and understand what their power is as well within their country. There's also advertising laws, so I really want to make you aware of that as well. So the SROs, again, are generally quite independent, apart from the FTC and a couple of other countries. But even if there isn't an SRO in that country, there's also advertising laws. So again, it's not just about you kind of having a slap on the wrist and kind of maybe getting a fine, maybe having your advert withdrawn. This is then disobeying the law when it comes to advertising. So it's so important to be aware of the laws in the country that you are advertising as well. Don't forget that we are very aware of these laws. So if you're ever in a panic about it and you're going to test a product with us and you don't know if the results that you're getting will be, substantiate claims enough and make sure they're not misleading, you can always ask us, and we'll ensure that all of your study design and questionnaire design and everything like that is going to make sure that you will not get into trouble when you're advertising in those countries. So kind of laws that I'm bringing up to do with in the UAE, you've got the National Media Council, which are part of the Advertising Business Group, but again, a federal organisation. So they're making sure that they have the right to enforce penalties if you go against any of their advertising laws. Same with the FDA in the USA. And in China, they've recently 5 years ago now, they reset the advertising law of the People's Republic in China, which strengthens the consumer protection and again allows them to impose tougher rules on advertisers if you go against the code of conduct. So really important to be aware of all these laws and organizations when you are launching your product. So that's kind of all the advertising scary laws and organizations. I want to talk specifically now about Suncare again. So the main thing to be really wary of when you're advertising any product, to be fair, but particularly with Suncare, is knowing what category it's falling in the country that you are advertising it. So for example, in the EU, all Suncare products and SPF products are classed as cosmetics. So if they're a cosmetic product, they have certain regulations there, and that falls into claims that you can make about the product as well. In the USA, they're classified as OTC products, which means they're strictly regulated under the FDA pre-market registration. So again, it's really important to know what claims you can make about it in the USA. That applies to all SPF products, not just sun protection, sort of as we know, sun cream and things like that. So again, even if you've got an SPF product, like a lip balm, that would still classify as an OTC in the USA. So again, especially if you, like I said, if you've got a EU market at the moment, but your online sales are going towards the USA, you may find it's a different product category. There may be very different regulations involved, so be really cautious. In Australia, they're classified as therapeutic goods, so they need to be regulated under the therapeutic goods, the TGA regulations, and again there's different applications to be able to get products there, but cosmetics that are not sunscreening but contain SPF are regulated as cosmetics. So again, slightly different regulations there, really important to be aware of. So again, if you're maybe an EU company and you're selling a product in Australia, you may find that it's still cosmetic because it's got an SPF in it, but it's not a sunscreening product. So just to kind of give you some examples of how complicated it can be when you're looking at global sales and global regulations when it comes to sun care. So yes, always be aware of where you're selling a product and the category it may be in. Certain testing. So before I go on to the consumer side, the marketing claims and everything like that, it's really important again to be aware of the testing that you'll need for SPF products, because it's very different to sort of your normal cosmetics or things like that. At the end of the day, we're talking about people's health. SPF is meant to protect us against harmful rays from the sun. So you need to make sure it's tested properly, because otherwise you are completely misleading your consumer if you haven't got correct SPF testing. So in the EU, they've got the International Sun Protection Factor Test Method, which is for UVA and UVB protection. There's the global standard, which is the ISO, which is got in vivo determination for sun protection factor. the sunscreen products. So that's a global regulation. If you are thinking of launching a sunscreen product and you're looking for a contract manufacturer to make it for you, make sure that they are making it under this ISO, because that will ensure they're following the correct sun protection factor testing methods. OTC products in the USA must comply with the FDA's new drug application, or abbreviated new drug application regulations. Sorry, that was such a mouthful, so I need to make sure I say it properly. So any OTC products have to have the NDA application or the ANDA application. But they also have, for smaller companies, the 2011 Sunscreen Final Rule, which contains guidance for testing SPF, UVA and UVB testing. Now, this is particularly for people that have a smaller brand, that maybe, you know, a pharmaceutical company that, you know, has all these applications, they're used to them because they're making lots of OTC products. Whereas if you've just got a cosmetic brand and you're looking to kind of have an SPF product, you can follow the Sunscreen Final Rule instead, which has got some other guidance. You haven't got to go through that application process. It's a bit different. So again, really important to be aware of. Either way, always make sure you're following the regulations. And as mentioned, for Australia, that was all to do with the TGA. So that's the application you have to do for testing for products for sun care in Australia. Again, lots of different methods worldwide, but it just gives you an idea of what's out there. So now I want to talk about consumer research. So we're kind of going back to our marketing side of the presentation and marketing claims. So for those of you that don't know or haven't used it before, consumer research are the in-use tests that are based on the consumer perception of the product. So we're not thinking about the science, we're not thinking about instrumental studies or clinical studies, we're not looking at those claims that are, you know, science-driven. We're looking at the claims that are about what can the consumer perceive with their naked eye when they use the product. Even if you have scientific data, and I cannot pressure this enough, even if you have some scientific data about the product, you may still need further consumer research data about the product as well to further substantiate it. There are also certain claims, and especially sun care, I'll kind of go through some of these claims, that you cannot substantiate through science. They are subjective. They're to do with what consumer can perceive and feel. So you need to make sure you have consumer research data to substantiate those claims. So generally, we're looking at in-home consumer studies. So they take the product home, they answer the questionnaire online. This is another reason why we're able to be so global, because we can send products anywhere in the world to our consumers, and as long as they've got access to the internet, they can review it online. And this reflects the actual condition of the product in use. So when your consumer purchases your product in store, they're going to take it home and they're going to use it as they would. So make sure that the data is incredibly reliable in terms of how people would actually use it. You haven't got a dermatologist putting an exact amount of product on the skin and then doing a test like that. You're putting on the product as you would, you know, if you follow the usage directions that you've got on your packaging, that's how they're going to use it. And it's really important to get that very real data to really give you some sort of robust substantiation behind your claim. So you may need additional evidence as well. So there are some studies where you need, you can just use consumer research, and there are some that you might need both clinical and consumer research for. So we can really help you assist with that if you've got certain claims that you want to discuss. So why conduct consumer research? So we've talked about substantiating advertising claims, but there's some other reasons as well. So you might want to just test the product efficacy. So when you're developing your product, you may very well, you know, want to look at the formulation sort of thing. I really want a non-greasy sun care product. So before you get to the point where you're substantiating your claims, you can test the formulation as you're developing it. It's a really important part of new product development, and make sure that the product is performing in the exact way that you need it to. So that's a really important kind of reason behind consumer research as well. It also ensures that your product is compliant in your territories that you want to sell it in. So for example, if you've got a maybe we always use the example like an eyeliner, like a kohl eyeliner, because it might in a cooler temperature be very solid and kind of draw on the way you want it to, and then when you're testing it in a hotter temperature, it might go too melty and just kind of not work properly. So it's almost like a stability test in real life, because you're looking at how that product is performing, but it's also making sure that it's accepted there as well. So in terms of finding out, you know, the product acceptability and propensity to buy in that country, you're making sure that the people that you're sending a product to reflecting that market, and you're getting some really good feedback. We've had a few situations where, oh, sorry, I'm skipping on, skipping on slides. We've had a few situations which have really helped people kind of develop their products correctly for the correct market. So for example, we tested a cleansing balm in Asia and particularly in China. And because they hadn't really used a cleansing balm before, they were much used to using sort of like washes and things like that. They didn't really kind of get the product very well. They weren't very sure about, you know, if it really was cleansing their skin and things like that. And it wasn't necessarily that we had to redevelop the product, but we had to kind of give some more education, a bit more story on the pack copy when the consumers were purchasing the product, so they would know exactly what it's meant to do and really understand how it cleans the skin properly. So it really gives you kind of that leg up when it comes to your marketing. So you haven't got to revise it later on. You can launch your product with all of the information that you know your consumer is going to need, which will make you sell more products basically. You can also target your key demographic and think about the markets that really suit it. So, you know, if you're looking at anti-aging products, you can make sure that people have fine lines and wrinkles. You can make sure you've got the age range of people that you think is going to purchase your product, and really get that genuine feedback from people that you know you're going to be trying to sell your product for. Some examples of claims that you'd see in Suncare there as well. So 88% of people felt that their skin felt protected all day. 9 out of 10 people would recommend this product to other families. 96% of people agree that it's non-sticky and non-greasy. So these are really common claims that you're going to see on sun protection products, and they can only be substantiated through consumer research. So just a bit of kind of background about, you know, what is really important when you're looking at claims basically. So not just what claims you can make, but what you need to consider when you're making claims. So the EU Cosmetics Product Regulation has stated 6 common criteria for cosmetic claims. So I know this is EU based, but it's really, really applicable to any market at all. They all have the same kind of regulations when it comes to advertising. And if you're following all of these, you're going to be compliant kind of worldwide basically. So legal compliance is really important. You can't say this product complies with EU regulation, blah, blah, blah. It has to. So that's not a fair claim. That is sort of a misleading claim, because it's basically saying my product's better because it has this EU regulation, but all products have to do that. So it's really important to note that you cannot say that as a claim. It has to be truthful. You can't say that this, you know, this SPF product contains SPF 30 when it actually doesn't, and it contains an SPF 10. It's lying, it's not being truthful, and you're misleading your consumers. Has to have evidential support. So not just, again, like those SPF tests that we talked about, but any kind of claim you're making on your product, if it's non-sticky, my skin felt protected all day, anti-pollution, anti-aging, these all need to have evidential support behind them. You can't just sort of say them based on what you think the product should do and what the raw ingredients say they do as well. You have to be honest. So again, you can't, I was going to say about the SPF product again. So honesty and truthfulness are basically falling under the same sort of bracket there. There probably are more examples, but off the top of my head, I have lost them. Fairness, that's to do with competitors. So you can't say this product made consumers' skin feel more protected when compared against, so it's SPF 50 and you're looking at compare it against an SPF 6 product. That's not fair. You can't make that comparison because one has got a much higher SPF in it. And informed decision making. Obviously, you need to make sure that your claims are very clear and very understandable to your consumer so that they can make informed decisions about whether to purchase your product or not. So types of claims as well. So the Cosmetics, Toiletries and Perfumery Association have done a really helpful breakdown of the types of claims you can make on cosmetic products. So you've got sensory claims, which is obviously to do about the sense of the product. How does it feel? How does it look? Performance claims, this is all about the efficacy. Does it actually do what it says it does? Does it make the skin feel soft? Are wrinkles diminished after 4 weeks? That's all about the performance. Ingredient claims, so as mentioned before, you could have a vitamin C product. So you know, you can sort of say this product contains vitamin C. Product aesthetics claims, obviously that's also to do with the look of the product, but we're also thinking about the packaging as well. What, you know, again, through consumer research, we can do market research on packaging designs, or we can send out the packaging for them to try, and they can say about the dispenser and everything like that. That's all about your product aesthetics claims. Combination claims, generally this is to do with a regime of products. So if you're looking at Suncare or something like that, you might have a daycare routine which has a cleanser, a toner, and then a day shield, and it's saying that all of these products used together make your skin feel, you know, like more protected and things like that. Comparison claims, so you could be comparing your product against a competitor, you could be comparing it against an old formulation, and these are all comparison claims that you can make. Subjective claims, that covers everything that's to do with consumer research. I would buy this product, I would recommend this product, my skin feels really protected, my skin is you know, free from pollutants. That is all your consumer claims because they're subjective. And then you've got your objective claims, that's the science. This has SPF 30 in it. Everything that can be measured is objective. Also important thing about the claims on your labels and your packaging. So this is just something I took out from the ICAS news. So they are basically saying that things on packaging weren't classically seen as adverts, any kind of description, because it was just a description of the product. But actually, it's so important to note that every kind of descriptive piece on packaging tends to have claims in it. This luxurious cream applies to the skin, so absorbs easily. These are all claims. They're not just things you can say about the product because they need to be substantiated. You need to have some kind of evidence behind them. So every SRO that's part of ICAS has made it very clear that they are going to be looking at product packaging as well, and not just the advertising that you're putting out yourself in kind of magazines, online, and on TV. Really important to note that basically anything you're saying about your product in any format needs to have evidential support. So yeah, really important thing about claims and packaging as well. We talk about claims and packaging and things like that. I'm going to give you some examples of where you'll see consumer claims overall, because it's all very good to say that you need this, it's legal and all of that, but it's also really important to know it's so effective when you're selling your product. Any place that you put this consumer research is going to help you sell more products. So we're going to look at that a little bit. So I've just gone onto these people's websites and taken literally what they have on their website by these products. So the Ombre Solaire Garnier, as we know, big leader in the sun care market. They've got claims about, you know, how it works, how it protects the skin, but they've got instantly protects the skin from sun damage. So really big claim there. A cooling effect, hydrates for 24 hours. So there's some really strong claims about their product on the website. I've also got Charlotte Tilbury's Magic Cream, which has got an SPF in it. And they're looking at the anti-aging effects of using an SPF product as well. So they've got some really strong claims there. About 100% of the 103 women tested said their wrinkles appear reduced, so the skin was moisturized. Some amazing effects, amazing claims on their website there. Drunk Elephant, which is another SPF 30 protecting sort of daily defense product, which again, daily defense products have become really, really popular for SPF. So another thing to think about there. And again, they've got some really high results about how the consumer test meant that their product, meant that those subjective claims basically from their consumer testing. You can also find advertising claims on TV. So I've taken a couple of SPF products as well as a sun care product. So we've got a L'Oreal product with 77% of 207 people agree. So as you can kind of see with TV, it doesn't say exactly what the claim is they're agreeing with. What they'll be doing is talking about the claims, and then they have to state how many people agree with that claim on the product. Same with the L'Oreal L'Oreal Revitalift product. So you've got 79% of 52 women agree. And then at the bottom here, this is a sun care product, and they've used a competitive claim rather than a performance claim, and said 91% of people would choose this product over market competitors. So again, you're looking at competitor claims as well. It doesn't just have to be about performance claims, but you always need to state the substantiation on your TV advertising. You also need to make sure that you've got some evidence if you're looking to advertise on shopping channels. So I've taken some information there about QVC's application. I'm actually going to show you a quick video from QVC for an SPF product. Bear with me quickly while I work technology. It's always very fun. So if I go here, oh no, that's the wrong one. I told you. Resume share. Is this going to work? Can you share? Is that showing? Yes, it is. Sorry. I knew that was going to happen. So I've taken a clip from a QVC advert, which is for their brightening serum of SPF. From the brand Tatcha. So I'll play this for you quickly so you can see how this is presented on QVC.
Graphics with you. So,
oh, it's going to load.
Just after 1 week, this is measured by an expert grader. This wasn't like we asked the participants. 100% of every single person that used this saw an improvement in smoothness. After 4 weeks, every single person saw an improvement in radiance. We also had people saying there was improvement in skin tone. And now when you keep using it, we get to 8 weeks, we see 95% improvement in appearance of fine lines, 12 weeks, 95% improvement in appearance of pores. So this is just from the serum. That's
great. Sorry about the slight hiccup there. So yeah, so as you can see, every part of script on advertising channels does have to be substantiated, but they also use the evidence as well to help sell the product on there. So before you go to any kind of shopping channel, make sure you've already got that evidence with you. It will be part of your application process, and then they'll be able to use it when they advertise your product on their shopping channels. So there's a bit more information there, but I won't go through it all. I'm going to let you take that in a bit, and I'll send this around after as well. So now I really want to look at some case studies of the consumer studies that we've conducted, the kind of methodology we've looked at, the study design, and the results that have come out of those studies. So the first one I'll look at is a test that we performed for a leading pharmacy, so a global retailer in pharmacy and health and beauty products, and they were testing a kids SPF 30 spray. So this is a sun care product. We're looking at sun protection, but obviously we have the sun protections already been substantiated through our SPF testing and our UVA and UVB testing. And now we're looking at the other claims about the marketing of the product, and that are substantiated through the consumer test. So this was a product that was marketed in the US and now wants to be marketed in Australia. Obviously, there can be some similar states in terms of weather-wise in the US, but overall, Australia, as we all know, is very, very hot, and there's really, really high sort of sun. The UVA and UVB rays are quite strong over there. So we need to make sure that those claims are still substantiated when the product's being tested in Australia. So they also want to make sure that the claims are about the sun protection product for children. So we had to make sure, obviously, we're looking at children testing the product, and we're looking at families. So in Australia, they have ad standards, who are their SRO over there. So they've got a code of conduct. I also wanted to take out a bit of kind of information from the ASCC, which is the Australian Society of Cosmetic Chemists, because they are really at the forefront of making sure that all regulations to do with advertising of cosmetics, and obviously, anything to do with any kind of sun care product, SPF products, that kind of thing. They're making sure that they're there at the forefront of making sure any regulations are and legislation is being put forward, so that they're still making sure that there is further code of conduct to make sure that there's no misleading advertising. So basically, they're saying that all claims should be capable of substantiation. Otherwise, it's really damaging the cosmetic industry and damaging to the consumers as well. So what was the protocol for this particular study? So obviously, it was conducted in Australia. It was a single placement, which means we were just investigating the one product. It's 14 days because we were just looking at people using it 14 days sort of daily, and making sure that all those claims, they were able to properly assess those claims over the 2-week period. There wasn't any kind of long lasting claims here. It's all about kind of immediate effect. So 2 weeks was enough to kind of use it a few times and go, yeah, this is exactly what I agree with this kind of product. We were looking at a range of Australian inhabitants because obviously we wanted to look at the whole country and not just look at specific parts of Australia, and looking at all skin types. And then the age ranges, we were looking for, obviously we want children because it's children's SPF, but it's really important that we had families on here because, as you know, if you've got children, if you've got an SPF product like a sun protection, the whole family is using it. You're not just sort of using it on your child. And you really want to get that feedback from the parents as well on how they feel about the product and how they feel about using it on their children. So we lifted the results from our report here. So I've just taken a few examples for you of some of the claims that were substantiated. So this is taken from our report. Now, our reports are in real time. So all of our statistical analysis is built into our software. So once the participants start answering the questionnaire, all of that is completely generated for us. You haven't got to wait for a final report. So that breaks down all of the individual question data, but it also gives you this really great summary report at the bottom of the table. So when we're looking at claim substantiation, we're really interested in this summary because it literally, you can lift this straight from the report and write it straight into your print, write it straight into your advertising, because we're looking at what percentage of people agree with each statement. So we've got the statements on the left-hand side. Then we've got the number of people that said they were satisfied, the number of people that said they had a neutral answer, and the number of people that said they were not satisfied. And then we have the percentage. So the percentage of people satisfied, neutral, or not satisfied. The percentage column for satisfied is what we're looking at for claim substantiation. So again, it's so easy to lift this from the report and know exactly which of your claims have passed and also how high that percentage agreement is. So we've got some really high percentages on here. These are incredibly high percentages, to be fair. Generally, people are looking at about 70% pass rate for kind of to satisfy regulations for all advertising platforms. You're very safe at 70% pass rate. Some can be lower, but I always kind of recommend to go 70%, so you know you're safe on all platforms and in all territories as well. So in that kind of knowledge, 90% is very, very high, and we've got even 100% on there to say the product is easy to apply. A product is easy to apply is quite a small claim, but when you're thinking about selling this to families, it's one of those things that actually can be quite a selling point. So yeah, we've got the product that's easy to apply. We've got the product is absorbed easily. Product does not leave white marks. It's described as water resistant. Do you agree with this statement? And how effective do you think it was at preventing your skin to peeling after exposure from the sun? Sorry. So obviously we've got, we can't say that it's protected from the sun. That has to be determined by SPF. But you can say, do you feel like your skin was protected? It's got an SPF in it, but do you feel like your skin was more protected from drying out from the sun when you were using this product? It's a subjective claim. But they're all the sorts of claims that when you're actually picking up a sun cream in the market, they're the ones that you're looking for, things like doesn't leave white marks, that it's water resistant. So really, really strong advertising claims there to ensure that they can sell some more product and have a step above the competitors. I also want to talk about a product that's just an SPF product. So we've had our Suncare, so that's particularly sun protection. And then this product is all about the SPF product, but the other attributes that it has. So it's an intensive lip treatment. So this is a skincare brand that always focus on development of problem skin. So we're looking particularly at people that have dry, flaky, chapped and cracked lips for this. So it's an intensive lip treatment. It's got an SPF in it. But really, we wanted to make sure that it would really perform very well when it was used on people that were going on winter sports holidays, because they're in a very cold climate, but they've also got a lot of exposure to the sun. I don't know if you've been on a winter sports holiday, but it's usually very, very high sun exposure, but a very, very cold climate. So very sort of targeting your lips. It gives you that kind of dry skin. So it's a great place to test a product like this. So we're looking at making sure the specific claims that it is a relief for dry, flaky, chapped and cracked lips are substantiated. So this is a UK brand, and they're looking at selling the product in the UK, but also maybe looking at some global markets as well. But as we're just looking at the efficacy claims at this point, we're satisfying the ASA's guidance. So they're basically saying that any claims that are about sensorial claims that are based on opinion must be substantiated with consumer research data. This is actually what we've talked about. It's just a little bit of backing up what I've said previously, and that's all part of their guidance for health, beauty and slimming claim substantiation. So again, this is all about the sensorial claims. Do you feel like it relieved those chapped lips? Everything like that must be substantiated through consumer research data as opposed to scientific study. So what was the study protocol? How did we break this down? So it was a UK English study, because even though we wanted people going on to a winter sports holiday, they were still UK inhabitants that were going on holiday. It's single placement again, so we're just investigating one product. This was a 28-day study because obviously when you're looking at something that's about repairing and relieving skin or chapped lips, you want to have as long as a testing point as possible, not just to give the product a chance to really get to its highest point of its performance, But I don't know if you've kind of I've found this with lip products before, but sometimes you can use it and you get that immediate relief, but actually you find after a couple of weeks, your lips don't feel any better, they feel worse maybe. And the product hasn't actually probably worked. It's given that immediate relief, but not any long lasting effect. So 28 days gives us a really good amount of time to be able to sort of indefinitely say that this product does work. We had a good age range on it to make sure that we had sort of a range of different people on the study. All of the users had to have very dry, flaky, chapped and cracked lips. It's very important that we're really assessing all of those attributes. They have to use a lip balm regularly because we want to make sure this performs better than any kind of normal lip balm they'd be using as well. And 25% of them had to be going on a winter sports holiday. So what was the results? So again, we've got the same breakdown that we had earlier. We've got our questions and we've got our agreement. So we had claims to do with the product was the lips felt relief from dehydration, the condition of my cracked lips looked improved, my lips felt nourished and cared for, my lips felt hydrated after every application, and the texture of my lips felt improved overall. And again, really high percentages there, all over 80%. So they're going to be able to use these claims on all kinds of marketing. And again, some really strong, effective claims there. So once you've done, so that's all the case studies I'm going to share today. But again, if you kind of want to talk about another kind of product and sort of hear if we've done studies to do with that kind of product, feel free to reach out. I'm just going to grab some water. So once you've got your consumer research data, you need to be able to submit it. So it goes into your product information file. So I know if you work in product development or anything like that, you'll know that you have a product information file about every product that you release, which includes all of the information about that SKU. So it includes anything to do with your ingredients, your cost listings, or your safety data. It would be your SPF testing, but it's also where you need to put your consumer research evidence as well. You need to be able to supply the researcher and all of their accreditations. So it's really important to make sure you're using a accredited independent research house, because obviously you're going to have to provide that. So if you are, looking for a distributor or looking to register your product in a country, you need to make sure that information is readily available. It also needs to contain any undesirable effects that are reported. So basically, we have on our consumer research studies a kind of underlying undesirable effects report system. So at any point on a consumer on any of our studies can report if they've had an undesirable event for the product. We're not really expecting serious undesirable events. And I have to admit, I've never experienced a serious undesirable event the whole time I've been at 18 Global Research, which is coming up about 9 years. It's very unusual because obviously the products have to be safety tested. So it's very unusual for a serious undesirable event, but there are some undesirable events that are reported. Things to do with skin feels a bit itchy, feels a bit flaky, that kind of thing. And it's really important that we have that reported so your responsible person is aware. It means you can really target undesirable events on a larger scale as well. So instead of just your safety testing, which is usually done on sort of 20 or 30 people, you're looking at kind of these tests of over 100 people. And if you're getting quite a lot of, non-serious undesirable effects, you might find that you want to change your maybe a level of active, maybe your fragrance, because you're actually finding that you're getting unnecessary irritations to the product that you could be avoiding, or you can just be aware of them. So there's some products that we test that have a high level of active in it, and they're expecting the skin to kind of react badly in it in the first instance, but for them to wear off. And again, it just means you've got that education available for your consumers. So I've talked a bit about consumer research and everything like that, but why should you use us? Why should you use 18 Global Research? So I've talked about undesirable event reporting. So that's again all compliant with the Cosmetic Vigilance Act. Your responsible person can have access to our system at any point as well, so they can have a login. And again, like our reports are, all of our undesirable event reporting is also done in real time. So you can see that the minute a person reports an undesirable event, regardless of how serious it is, you will be able to see that immediately through your login as well. So that's really important, because if it was serious, you need to react very, very quickly. We've also got product liability insurance. Not every research company does, but it's really important because obviously we're putting our products in the hands of our consumers. So it's really important to make sure that not only we're covered, but also you're covered in the case of a serious undesirable effect. Hopefully never happen. We've got, we're compliant with all the GDPR regulations. So we've got an ISO 2007-1, which is an auditing process that we undergo to make sure that we are very compliant with GDPR. So that's really important because it's not just to do with our consumers. So obviously our panelists, we hold very sensitive data about them, about all of their preferences in life to make sure they get put to the right studies. And again, we test all industries, so there's quite a lot of sensitive data on there. So it's really important to make sure they are completely protected and their data is completely anonymized when they're answering questionnaires. And that's really important, not just for Europe and being GDPR compliant. It's also important no matter where you are around the world, because if you want to do things like use the research to put into a research journal, they'll need to make sure that you followed proper data protection regulations while you're conducting the research. So it also makes sure that we're protecting your data as well. That's what I was going to say. So we've got things like your INCI lists, we know your product development. It's really important that we're compliant, so we know, so that you know that we're not sharing your very personal information somewhere either. We've also got an ISO 9001, which is to do with quality management. So just gives you the confidence that we are following, again, an audit process for quality management. And we're also a partner to the Market Research Society. So that's more to do with how ethical our research is. And again, it means that you can use that research on any platform because you know it's followed the code of conduct of the MRS. And to be a partner, we need to really demonstrate that we are following the correct procedures and the correct code of conduct. And again, just giving you that kind of confidence that it's all done properly. Further advice for consumer studies. So we always suggest a panel size starting at 100 responses. This is because there's no regulation globally currently, but some platforms, advertising platforms, do require certain amounts of responses on their studies. So 100 responses is very kind of safe place to start. Again, it also means if your product did come under scrutiny, if you did have a complaint about your product and you were asked to present your evidence, you're really happy that you've got a kind of robust body of evidence behind you to say that the claims have been substantiated. So 100 responses is a good starting point. Again, it can change depending on the product and the claim and the territory. So always feel free to reach out and we can give you some advice on that. I've already talked about product liability insurance, and I've talked a bit about safety testing. So again, yeah, make sure that your products are safety tested before you think about doing consumer research. It needs to be safety tested to the point that it would be safe to sell on the market. So whatever kind of product we're looking at, again, particularly for sun care, obviously it means that it needs to have undergone the relevant testing to say that it's protecting against the sun before we can give it to our consumers. And also all those kinds of tests to make sure it's not irritating on the skin and things like that. For claim substantiation studies, always make sure your samples are debranded or the studies conducted blind. This removes any bias towards your brand when you're looking at that research data. Unless you're looking at testing the brand, looking at the brand packaging itself. If you want feedback on the brand, then we'll obviously send it branded. But again, we can give advice on that one. And always ensure that your questionnaire design will support your claims, because obviously you can have the best claims in the world, but if your questionnaire design hasn't supported that, they will not be substantiated because you haven't answered them in the right way. And we can always also advise on that. Just want to finish off by looking at some removed adverts so you can see the kind of backlash that can happen if you don't have your claims substantiated. And generally it's bad press. So I'm not saying that these products don't have these claims aren't real. They very much will be, but if you don't have the evidence to substantiate your claim, it may mean that you get the kind of bad press that these products have faced in these examples. So basically, the SROs are very, very public about this sort of thing, particularly in America and particularly over here in the UK. They are publishing weekly reports on adverts that they have had to investigate, regardless of whether it's been upheld or not upheld. So making sure you have that evidence is so important to make sure you don't get this kind of kind of bad press. So we've got sort of examples of sunscreens that have failed safety tests by the ASA. So they've kind of gone in and done a blind study to say, has it got this SPF in it? And they haven't. There could be a misunderstanding behind that story, but that's not the point. This is what the consumers see. They see these headlines. There was the L'Oreal ad ban for misleading UVA on kids sun cream claim. That was very interesting because they went for a 5-star UVA rating where there'd previously only been a 3-star. So it looked like they were saying they were better, but actually it had only been at that limit previously. It had only been 3-star previously. So it wasn't better than a 3-star. It's just that the rating system had changed. Very confusing case, that one. But again, so important to be aware of the code of conduct, because you can make sure you're not making those kinds of claims in the first place. There was also a Green People's ad that was which was banned because they said that basically an SPF 30 product an SPF 50 product was only 1% more effective than an SPF 30 product, which just simply wasn't true. But they kind of backed it up to say they had evidence behind it. It was a whole case. But generally, again, just be really, really cautious that you're not kind of making really outlandish claims, because you will probably get in hot water for it. So now I'm going to open up to a Q&A. I have seen some questions coming in as I've been going on, so I'll start off by answering those. I will try and answer all the questions, obviously, but if you have any further questions, feel free to, feel free to email me separately. And if I don't have any answers, I will have a look at these and get back to you as well. So the questions I've had so far: what does advertising encompass? Do label claims, ingredients, efficacy, and consumer research tests count as advertising? So as we talked about, advertising is basically anything you're saying about your product that is put into the public domain. So anything to do with what's on your labels, anything to do with what's on, in print, on TV, anything to do with what's on social media. Basically ensure that anything that you are saying about your product, that you're putting it into public domain, it needs to be substantiated. That's what advertising is. It's anything basically positive you're saying about your product publicly. I hope that explains that one. So next question: in the EU, which of the claims criteria do the free from claims infringe on? Is it legal compliance? Interesting. So basically it kind of infringes on a few of them. Compliance is one of them, because again, not for compliance necessarily, sorry, it's the fairness one, actually. It's the fairness claim, because basically what you're saying is if your product is free from something, then it's better and safer for the consumers than other products. So obviously a huge one in the EU, and I think we all know about this one, is to do with the paraben claim, free from parabens, because there's no scientific evidence to say that parabens are actually bad for you. So by saying it's paraben free, you're saying you're better than the competitors that do have parabens in them, and essentially misleading your consumers because you're kind of telling them it's bad. And there's obviously, like, as I think, as you kind of know because you've asked the question, there's been a kind of huge answer back to all of this. So things like paraben free, silicone free, it's all going to be kind of looked at, because obviously these if they're not damaging, you're not being fair by saying that they're free. Sorry, I kind of said that about a million times, but I hope that's explained your question. Explained your question. So the next question: I imagine that a lot of caution is exercised while drafting out claim questions for consumer research studies. What factors are considered for wording? So again, it really depends on the product, it depends on the claims, but we are trained by the Emirates in questionnaire design. So everyone at Global Research has been trained by the Market Research Society in questionnaire design, and generally it's making sure that the question's very clear, it's very obvious for a consumer. The question answers have to be fair. We can't make sure that they're led to sort of say, one way or the other. They can't have a bias towards positive. They have to have every opportunity to say any answer they may feel. So that's why for some claims you may find that we've got a neutral answer. For some, we don't need to have a neutral answer. It really depends on the claim there. We always like to word things in present tense. I think that's really important, because again, it means that the product it makes it very clear it's the product that's having the effect, and that your skin, one of my favorite ones is this: my skin was blemish free. Well, was that before you use the product or after you use the product? Not very clear. It needs to be very present. There's a lot of different things in that. I could kind of go on and on. So yeah, basically all the kind of training and experience as well. We've been, conducting consumer studies for 25 years. I myself have been conducting consumer studies for nearly 10 years. It's a lot of experience of what we've seen, and just very used to writing questionnaires at this point. There's kind of no claim at this point that I haven't seen before. And if there is, we always seek advice if we're not sure about how to word it as well. So the next question is, product liability insurance a requirement in every country? We have product liability insurance for every single country that we are putting, that we have consumers in, that we have our panelists in. So every country that we test in, we are covered for. That is very important, because we're protecting those consumers, but also protecting ourselves. If we didn't have product liability insurance and we sent out a product and say, you know, the consumer had a really bad effect to it, and it was our fault because we put in the usage directions that they had to use it twice as many times as they were supposed to. Again, this has never happened, by the way. But if we did that, we could be sued essentially for making that person have an undesirable event. So it's very important that we have product liability insurance for every country that we are putting our products into. And, you know, if you are manufacturing a product, you need to do the same thing. You need to make sure you've got product liability insurance for every country that you're selling your product. Okay, another question. What is your view of once application claims that Boots and P20 offer? Are you aware of any backlash to these claims, and how are they substantiated? So these will be substantiated through scientific measures. I would never be so bold to make a claim like that through consumer research, because again, it's all about the SPF measure. My opinion on it, I'm not sure. To be fair, I mean, this is me. I'm not talking as a researcher now. This is me talking as a consumer. I would never apply an SPF product once and feel like I was protected, regardless if that claim is on there. I'm very much one of those people that very abides by the kind of rules of, you know, very frequently applying SPF products. Maybe that's because I'm part of the cosmetics industry, as I know what many of you are, and I think you probably take more cautious measures because you know the ongoing effects of using products properly. But so yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to substantiate a claim with once application through consumer research, and I'm not sure about how reliable those claims are. Again, it's not going to be my territory there, because that will be scientific claims. When it comes to SPF testing, where do you advise SPF testing is done? Well, it depends. It very much depends on where you're manufacturing your product, where you're selling your product. Generally, scientific and clinical tests aren't the same as consumer studies, in terms of the fact that you don't necessarily need to conduct it in the country in which you're selling that product, or in a similar country to the way you're selling that product. We don't have to test on every single country that we're selling it, because we can kind of get similar countries. But generally, it's not got that same kind of advice. I mean, obviously there is a difference to, looking at the Fitzpatrick scale, people do have a higher propensity to burn depending on their ethnicity. So it's really important to make sure you're testing on a range of ethnicities. But generally, yes, it can be whatever testing house is applicable. We've got quite a lot of testing houses that we work with, and what we do is if you tell us what products you've got and the claims you've got, we'll obviously arrange the consumer testing ourselves, but we can pair you up with one of our partners that we would recommend, depending on where you're based, depending on where you're selling the product, and depending on what the product is. So yeah, we can always help with that, kind of a case-by-case basis. Okay, next question. Is it possible to achieve a Cosmos accreditation for a sun cream? I imagine it is. Again, this isn't my speciality, because obviously Cosmos application is part of the EU regulation, but I do think that you probably can. So I'm probably not the best to answer that. I tell you what, if you reach out to the Cosmetics, Perfumery and Toiletry Association, they will probably have a very clear answer on that, or to reach out to Cosmos anyway, directly. So sorry, that wasn't much of a help. I've got no more questions ready to answer right now, but has anyone got any further questions? If I just leave that open for a minute. I'll just see there's some things on the chat as well. Oh no, I've answered that one. Yeah, I'll leave that open for a couple more seconds. But as I mentioned, I'm going to email everyone at the end of this presentation with the link for the recording and everything like that. So when I email that over, you'll get my email address and my phone number, I have my mobile telephone and things like that on there as well. So obviously we're working from home at the moment. So if you've got any further questions, please feel free to ask me directly as well. So I'm going to leave the questions there for a moment. I just wanted to finish off by talking about the SCS, so the Society of Cosmetic Scientists. So at the moment, I really want to push this because they've got the distance learning course. Now, while everyone's at home, you may be furloughed, you may just be working from home and have more time on your hand, or you might be really bored when you do have free time. They've got the distance learning course, which is a industry recognized course in the essentials of cosmetic science. So it might be a really good opportunity to extend your education. I know I've been really interested in kind of learning more stuff while I've kind of got free evenings and nowhere to go. So they've got a really good course there, and you can find more information at their website. They're also going to have the IFSCC Congress, which is going to be in London in September 2022. So again, a while off yet, so hopefully that will all be going ahead. And you can register your interest for that now at their website. And I'll just finish off there with my contact. Well, this is our main office contact information. Again, you'll get my direct contact information at the end of the when I send over the recording. I hope that's been really helpful. I'm aware that I didn't answer all everyone's questions. So if you want some more information, if you feel like I didn't answer your question properly, please feel free to email me. I can give you some more information, and I can help you research things as well. If you don't know who to ask, I can really help you as well. Just kind of direct you in the right direction, basically. So thank you so much for attending today. And yeah, I will be in touch soon. Thank you.